Hi, I'm Darlene Carman, and welcome to the show. Wildlife photographer Pat Toth-Smith was one of my first guests when I started out in 2005. Last year, I was delighted to see her again and invited her back. Her award-winning book, Wild Among Us, couples stunning photography with vivid narratives of real-life experiences spanning over 20 years. Wow, that's a long time.
Well, thank you for having me here, Darlene.
Glad to have you. Now, you didn't start out as a wildlife photographer. You had, you know, your grandmother and your father and your mother all played a part in this, and you also were like 10 years as a nurse. So how did this come about, you becoming a wildlife photographer?
Well, you know, it's quite interesting, Darlene, because what I was doing hospice nursing in the last area of nursing that I was doing, and it was kind of hard, and it was very stressful. And I was actually looking for a career change, and I decided to do photography. I had always loved it. It was something that I did on vacations. So I went to college for it, and the college hired me, and I did all the stuff in it, but it really wasn't until a trip to Yellowstone that really made me want to do wildlife photography. It was during the rut. There was a lot of horned animals fighting with each other. And the way Yellowstone is, you're in such close proximity that you almost can touch these animals. And I couldn't sleep. I got up early the next morning, left my husband a note, and then I went out there and I found this moose that was in the mist, and it's one of my best shots. It was just, that's what started me doing it.
Well, backing up though, back to your grandma. That was the tie-in with the nursing, right?
Yeah.
And then your father was a hunter?
Yeah, he was a hunter, but he also, ironically, he loved looking at animals. So we would always be watching, you know, all these animal shows on TV, and he would take us out looking for deer. And when we'd be in the car, I'd always be looking around for deer. And so it was something that I enjoyed doing, and it transfers very much to this.
And your mom was like a fashion photographer in some ways?
In a sense, she
put all that together.
She thought she was a professional, but she was obsessive about videoing us and taking our picture. And so it was just something I grew up with. She was always posing us, dressing us up, and so all of those things sort of came together for me when I decided.
I just find that interesting, you know, how that came about, a little here, a little there. You know, that's the way life is.
Yeah.
Now, when you've gone out on your expeditions, you've taken friends, and you've taken your husband, Andy, but for the most part, you like to travel alone when you go out. So what is it that you like to have out in the wilderness, the experience? What is it that you like?
Well, you know, it's funny because I find it very peaceful and serene, and I actually used to be a runner. And for me, you know, when I moved to California from New Jersey, I just hiked fast. And so I would hike with people, and I'd be way ahead, and I'd wait for the, you know, trail to split. So I got very used to hiking alone in the Sierras. I got used to hiking, you know, locally. And so for me, it was an easy transition to wildlife photography because it's really a solitary profession. You know, you're not, first, the animal, you know, if there's too many people there, you can scare off the animal.
Yes.
And I'm sort of smaller, you know, and I stay a long distance away, so they can get used to me. And sometimes I can stay an hour with an animal. And that's how I get some of my interesting behavioral shots.
An hour with an animal? You're only 5'4"?
I'm 5'3".
5'3", I'm 5'4", barely. Okay, so actually that's an advantage, I think.
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's also hard for people to come with me because I might be there 3 hours, 4 hours, and they're like, you know. And so there's that issue too. So, yeah.
And getting up, because you get up at the crack of dawn. Not even the crack of dawn, before the crack of dawn.
Yeah, I get up about 4, sometimes 5 a.m. when it's dark out. And I go out there and look around for wildlife. So.
Yeah. And of course, people that you're with, like, what? I haven't had my coffee yet, right?
It's very rare. I mean, my nephew did it when he was 12 and didn't do it again, by the way. But but yeah, it's hard to get up at 4 in the morning. And I'm a bit of, I'm still on New Jersey time. So most of the animals I photograph out west, I get up early anyway, so it's okay.
I just found it very stimulating to understand that the bears that you encountered at Katmai were not like in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. They were on the trails.
Oh, yeah.
Where visitors are supposed to. Why is that?
Well, Katmai is the home of the bears.
Alaska.
It's their home in Alaska, and they use the trails, and you're using the trails with the bears. And when I first went there, they give you a bear orientation, and they tell you to clap and yell and make noise, but a lot of times the bears will come at you on the trail. And one of my worst original experiences was the first time I went to Katmai. And it's a 2-mile hike from where you're at the ranger area where you camp to the falls where the fish and the salmon are and the bears are. And on this hike, towards the end of the hike, there's a hill that's very dangerous that you have to go over. And so you don't know what's on the other side. You're clapping and yelling. So my husband and I went on the other side of the hill, and then you don't know what's coming behind you. And I heard this big noise. I turn around, and there's a bear running at me.
Running at you?
On the trail. And he was running at me, and then that was the first encounter I had with a bear, by the way. And he ran around me and kept running. And it was just this, you're just shocked. You really are. And my husband and I looked at each other, and we thought, these bears don't run. What's chasing this bear that's making him run? So we just hurried up, and there was actually a platform there at the falls where the ranger is, and once we got there, we felt safe. So, yeah.
And now I understand from your book that they did remove that hill.
Yeah, that they took, I think a lot of people had similar experience. So they have now put a longer platform, so you don't have to do that hill anymore.
I won't ask you how many people that they've lost, because actually I did research it, and it's not bad.
No.
But it really is something to turn the people loose and say, go on your 2-mile hike, have fun.
Yeah.
And, without any rangers escorting you, that just sounds a little bit.
The first time you hear it, you're like, what? Where is the ranger with the gun? Isn't he supposed to come with me? But, it really works. It's so funny that it does really work. And I learned how to clap and yell really loud. And, and really my last trip to Katmai, I actually took a 5-hour hike alone, just clapping and yelling. In the middle, we took a bus up to this area, and I hiked by myself. The friend I went with was done with hiking, and she stayed at the bus and said, nope. So it does work, and everybody, if you follow the rules, you're okay. So.
Follow the rules. we have a few pictures now of bears, and there you go.
Yeah, this is Katmai National Park. You're looking at Brooks Falls. And that is about a 6 or 7 foot falls, and that's where they all gather. Okay. Yeah. And it's kind of a neat place. And this is 2 cubs. It's called Cub Brothers, but they remind me a lot of children, because the mom would chase them up the tree. As soon as she'd leave, they'd come down. She'd chase them up again, but the mom keeps them there for safety reasons.
Oh, that's so cute.
And this one is Grizzly Affection. These are 2 large grizzly bears, a male and a female, and they're actually playing in the water. The bears will play a lot before they go off into the woods and mate, but it's neat to see these 2. They were easily close to 700 to 1,000 pounds.
And they're playing.
They
are not fighting.
No. A fight is very quick and fast, and you hardly see it. And this is one of the bears that you saw in the falls, and that's how they catch the fish. They lean over and grab them midair.
Oh, yummy.
Yeah. And I just want to point out to this little cub behind you, this one behind, a curious cub or humbled cub. He was not the star. His his cub brother was the star. Mom was teaching him how to fish, and the other bear caught the salmon, and he just couldn't do it, and he fell at least 2 or 3 times, and then he kind of fell on and off, getting to the side of the river, and there he sat on the rock, and I just thought he was so
This
sweet.
is what I like about your photography. You can see the dejection. You might not know exactly what happened, but it's clearly visible on this bear.
Yeah,
and that's what I like about your photography.
Oh, thank you.
I've seen a lot of bears where they're fighting and stuff like that, but this is different. This is just human emotion.
Oh,
so
thank
I really
you,
like
darling.
that one.
That's really nice.
So you actually did land up going to ER, but it wasn't because of a bear. What was it?
I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but a mosquito. I was brought down by a mosquito. No, I found out I'm allergic to some kind of Alaskan mosquito. And it bit me before I even got to Katmai, and it bit me on the side of the face. And all I could say is within 24 hours, I looked like half of the Great Pumpkin. And my face had swollen out to here, my eye had swollen shut. And I actually had to be flown out because it started affecting my breathing. And yeah, and that was pretty tough because I had to fly to King Salmon, and then they had to fly me to the Anchorage ER. And when I got there, the doctor said it was my airway was almost closed. And they gave me all these, emergency meds, and I ended up having a reaction to the med. So it was tough. I had a vasovagal reaction where I started to pass out and shake, and the nurse came in and rescued me, and brought me out of it. But that was tough. That was tough.
You never saw the mosquito that bit you?
No.
But the locals said something to you?
Yeah, well, they tell me that the mosquito is the Alaska state bird, so of course.
So it must be big.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny. There's so many different varieties of mosquitoes, and so it must just be something that's common there. But I take a lot of precautions now. I really do.
But you do.
Oh, I have full head netting and full body netting, and it's so funny because I'll go to the Everglades wearing all this netting, and I mean they must have like 2-inch long stingers because they will bite me through the netting.
Wow.
I'm like, how does that even happen? But
well, that was quite an experience, but it wasn't because of a bear. We have to point that out.
No.
My favorite bear story is this one.
Oh.
I love this one. It's clearly evident that the mama bear is scolding the baby bear.
Yeah.
You can just really see that. You can almost hear. I think you called it barking.
Barking, yeah.
But just what did the baby bear do that upset her so much?
Well, it's fascinating. I pursued bears a lot, black bears, and this is a black bear from the Sierras. Yeah,
okay.
And they're not easy to find, but this family let me hang with them. It was 2 cubs and a mom in the Sierras, and I was far enough away. I was actually across the road, and I was photographing them for a while. And this little cub thought I looked interesting and decided to come to me. And the little cub was crossing the street, and I'm like, no, this isn't happening. Please tell me. And so I'm clapping and yelling. Oh, totally. And then the mom was barking, and the cub got it and ran back. And she was barking at that cub easily 5 minutes, just blah, 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 blah. And finally they leaned in together and they had like a little hug.
So
yeah, and
he went back to her.
Yeah, and
because you're sitting there wondering, what am I going to do now? So he went back to her.
And when he did, I took a few shots and I left because I was in the photo now. I'm in the photo story. That's not you don't want to be in your photo story.
Yeah. That's
no, not a good thing.
Well, not only do you have problems like with dangerous bears or wildlife, but you also have the human variety.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the weirdos that come out. And how do you protect yourself? And what might you carry in your bag or your kit that other people do not carry to protect yourself?
Well, it's interesting. I've done this 20 or more years now, so, and I was quite young when I started. And what I try to do is I follow my intuition, okay? If things don't feel right, if I'm at a campsite and I don't feel like it's a good place for me, I'll leave. I just am extra cautious, and I'm very aware, and I try to, like on the freeways, I try to pay attention if somebody's following me. I just do a lot of that stuff to begin with. And then I also carry pepper spray. I carry a body alarm for when I hike. It sounds like a car alarm. And I use it when in my tent too at night. And then I carry a lot of medical supplies because being a nurse, I can help people out too. So I carry, of course, my EpiPen now for my allergy. And then I carry something that people don't think to carry, but it's very, I've used it many times. It's an ACE wrap. And it's great because if you ever had a fracture or break, you can splint it. And I had a case where I was somewhere where there was a rock slide, and this person had a huge gash on their leg, and I was able to clean it and ace it, and they were able to hike down. So, you know, I carry a lot of medical stuff with me, too.
So, no guns or anything?
No, the pepper spray. But I do get the industrial strength when I go to Alaska.
That's
Just like this big, so.
And the adrenaline, is that the Epi?
The EpiPen, yeah. I carry that now because I found out I'm also allergic to bees, so.
Oh.
Yeah, bees and mosquito are that's what I'm afraid of now. No.
Well, because of your medical training, all of that's good. But is there any time that you've used it without the obvious BandAids and stuff in your travels?
You know, I use it a lot, actually. I use it because I was trained in the hospital and I was on the code team. So you have to act first and stress out later. So it helps me when I'm in very tenuous situations with bears or wolves or any other animal where I feel threatened. I actually, it helps me to be calm and do the right thing. Like in the case of grizzly bears in Alaska, you're not supposed to stare at them. You're supposed to put your eyes down and back away slowly and get out of their way, get off the trail. And I can do that even if it's 3 big bears standing there. And you know, and then I'll get back to my tent later and be shaking. You know? but that helps me. You know,
put on a front kind of.
Yeah, I just so many years as a nurse, you just have to really perform. You know, putting IVs in little babies in the ER or doing something. So you have to keep it together, and that's what really helps me, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's,
yeah.
That, you know, that came in handy, all that training that you had, even though you're not a nurse anymore. But look how it's helped you.
Yeah.
You probably didn't have any idea when you first started out how helpful that would be.
Yeah, oh, you're right. I never thought my nursing would play a big part in wildlife photography, but it really does. And
I think that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So in your work with, you know, taking the pictures and observing the animals and so forth, I'm sure you've got your zealous public that want to invade the scene, and it's probably very hard to elude them. So give us an instance where the public has been behaving badly.
Yeah, they should have a show, Public Behaving Badly, because there is a lot of public behaving badly with wildlife. And I'm going to tell you one instance that I just could not believe this black bear didn't smack this guy. But I was in the Tetons, and there was this bear eating berries, and it must have been a tourist. He was within 4 feet of this bear with a little throwaway camera, and he's jumping around, and I'm like, why isn't this bear smacking him? You know, it was like he was very lucky because we're all telling him don't get that close, you know. But
so you did have an audience.
There was
people
started coming, you know, stopping, and then finally the ranger came. But
the ranger.
But I have seen people in the Everglades by these big alligators standing there at one end and the picture on the other, and buffaloes, and you know, people get mauled by these animals or hurt. And I guess because they're in a national park, they must think they're you know, tame, but it's
you think that's it?
I don't know. I'm or tamer. Maybe they're not. But everything with an animal is space. You really have to be a long distance from the animal for them to feel safe, and for you to not get injured. So yeah.
Wow. Now, you're no beginner to snowmobiles. Did that New Jersey, okay? And snowmobiles, to me, look cumbersome. But in the movies, they're like really fast. But they're not so much when you have to go like maybe 40 miles. So tell us your buffalo story.
Oh, this, yeah, I learned to snowmobile in New Jersey, and so of course plus I've used the skill other times, but this was the first time I went to Yellowstone in the winter, which is a great time to see wolves. It's a good time to see buffalo and elk because their fur shows up against the snow. And this was a time when you could actually rent a snowmobile and go by yourself into the park.
By yourself?
By yourself, yeah. Now, yeah. Now you have to go with a group. But I decided I was going to go to Hayden Valley, which is a 40-mile ride, yeah. And so it was, it was amazing because I started going, and you know, you have to use the gas with one hand and the brake is the other. And you know, 30 miles in about 4 hours is a lot of pressing. So I hooked up a Velcro, and then I was zooming alone like cruise control, you know, to keep me at a speed.
So actually pushing the button was really hard
on my finger after a while, so I Velcroed it at a certain level, and people were looking at me like, wow, she's really good. But I get to Hayden Valley, and this is a place where there is a lot of buffalo. And what they do in Yellowstone is they only plow a small lane, one-lane road through, so that's what you're on. And one side is all this snow, and I happened to go around this sort of hilly mountain thing, and when I came around the corner, the buffaloes were in a line, which is the photo you see.
Let's take a look at that photo of
behind
these
me.
buffalo in a line going, hello, you're not going to get through here.
They were blocking the road, and I stopped, and it was so tense because they weren't moving, and I couldn't turn the snowmobile around because I didn't have enough room. They don't back up, and I couldn't lift it. So we're sitting there, as a standoff, literally 10, 20 minutes, right?
20 minutes?
20 minutes,
Oh.
and I'm taking some pictures of the buffalo, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't just stand here all night in Yellowstone. And so I thought it all through, and I thought, maybe they don't want to go between me and the mountain area.
There's no radio, there's nobody to call. Help!
There's nothing. Yes, no cell phone coverage. So I ended up taking my snowmobile next to the mountain, and then these buffaloes walked past me, and they were not happy.
All of those guys walked past you?
Yeah, they walked past me, and they were really close. And luckily, none of them, like they said to you, jump off your snowmobile if they charge you. And I thought, they're on this side, they're on that side, and I'm not gonna, where am I gonna, you know, so
where are you gonna go?
Yeah, so I was very lucky that time, and since then they have stopped allowing people alone to go, and I kind of think I think it's a good idea.
You think it's a good idea,
not to be alone, but yeah.
So how many groups do they, 5, 6 people in a group?
Yeah,
now?
Yeah, now it's guided tours that they take you through.
I think it's a good
and I don't think they take you 40 miles or 80 miles is what I ended up
Well, there
doing.
was more of a story, but you have to read the book on that one. We're not going to go into there.
Yeah.
We have a couple more pictures of the buffalo.
Yeah. And this is called Buffalo Buddies. These are 2 of the buffaloes that were together. I just was taking close-ups of them while I waited.
Okay.
And then
they're posing definitely for you.
Definitely. And then this is called Buffalo Portrait. And what I like about it is you really see the snow that freezes to their fur, and it just stays like that.
And the teeth. I don't know why the teeth are open.
Yeah.
So, very nice. Well, you're working on another book now, Everything Sea Otters. And what I find interesting about that book is even though we couldn't possibly talk about all of the animals in here, you have moose and wild horses and eagles and all kinds of things in here, whereas this other book, it's just about otters. So that fascinated me. I'd like to know what's the different approach between this first book and the second book, and then we'll see some pictures afterwards.
Sure. Wild Among Us is kind of unique, and what's nice about it, there's 9 hard-to-find wildlife. I tell their story, I tell the behaviors that they're doing when I see them, and then you see the pictures. And so you're basically you feel like you're on the trip with me, and you're also learning about that animal. And I decided with the Sea Otter book, Everything Sea Otter, I have a lot of great pictures of otters doing all different things. And what it's going to be similar in that you're going to see the photos of the otters, and then I did a separate story that that will teach you about otters, and it's a really good story. It's an exciting story, and the book is really a tribute to sea otters, and it's for people that like otters, so they can learn more about them. And I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about the story. I'm not going to tell you anything about it.
I know you can't, but I know I want to ask one question. But so, like it's from like I can say it's like 15 years of experience, right?
Right, right. And
Okay.
it's a lot of moms and babies. And we could show some of the
See
pictures.
some pictures,
Sure.
yeah, of the otters.
Okay, this is called Pensive Sea Otter.
Oh. Oh.
I know, he's sweet. I just love the way he looks and his hands. And this is called Sea Otter Pup. This is a mom and a baby, and the baby, what's neat is their fur is so heavy you never see their faces, so I was really lucky to get a picture of their
Well,
face.
yeah, I kind of see it, but it was just
Yeah,
like really tucked
yeah.
in there. And the baby doesn't look wet.
No, their fur is so thick, they're like a bobbin, they can't sink. That's it. They float. And this is called the Thinker. And that's what people like about the otters. They're always fluffing their fur, because they have to put air in between their fur and skin to keep themselves warm. So they're always busy, and they remind me of teddy bears in the water, really, because they look with the hands and the feet.
Yeah,
So it's neat. And this is the last shot I have. And what's neat about this is the otters, the moms and the babies, in California, it's so warm, they fall asleep together, and they'll start to drift apart, and then the baby will wake up and cry like a baby. It's kind of amazing, and then they run back together. So, yeah.
So I can say where these are, or you can say
They're my Monterey. They're in the Monterey area.
all Monterey area.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's so
up
many
in-
of them.
Yeah.
So, well, those are really, really neat. And when might that book be out? Maybe next year?
Well, I'm hoping. I'm starting to get, sending out letters for publishers. So we'll
Good,
see. Yeah, so
good.
we'll see. Hopefully it'll be out by next year.
Oh,
yeah.
well, it's just, I've really, really enjoyed having you on the show. And where can people see your work?
Well, I do art and wine festivals in the Bay Area. I'll be doing Mountain View. I'll be doing Palo Alto.
Okay, so Palo Alto is like in August.
Yeah,
Okay, and Mountain View is in September.
September, yeah.
And San Carlos is in October.
October, yeah. So I'll be doing
So-
those shows, and then I, of course, I have my website that people go on to too.
I think that's a good idea for people to check me. It's all on there, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Not too much preview though on your book. That's still a little secret right now.
Yeah, yeah. I want to send it out to the publishers first
That would be a good idea.
before I talk too much about it. But
Well, I wish that we could have even shared more with this book. This is just beautiful. I was just so happy to see what you've been able to accomplish with all of this.
thank you.
We didn't even touch on the polar bear, and one of my absolute favorites was the wild horses, of course. But anyway, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show, and I want to thank you for watching the show. There's a lot more information about Pat on the website, and of course, the best way is just to meet her and talk with her and find out the stories. That's really the best thing to do. So thank you for watching the show, and watch again. Would you sign?
I would love to. Thank you.